Wasabi everybody! Welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. I'm going to talk today about the 10 most fun commanders right now in the Commander format. Now before I start the video, let's get it out of the way. I know fun is subjective. It's different for everybody. This is just what I think is the most fun, and hopefully from my perspective, it might help you understand the type of Commander player that I am, that I find all of these to be fun commanders. It's subjective. We get it. So number 10 we have Feather the Redeemed from War of the Spark. Still one of the most creative commander options, especially if we're talking about Boros. Boros doesn't really do the card advantage thing well. You have a commander here that gives you solid card advantage. If you have instants and sorceries, that will allow you to draw cards. If they target Feather, you will get those instants and sorceries back. This also means that you can play a Spellslinger strategy, so you can take advantage of some newer cards from Strixhaven like Stormkiln Artist. You can also play Mavinda Student's Advocate, so you have ways of taking advantage of instants and sorceries that target your Feather. This is just what's fun to me. I like when you have a unique strategy, and it's not just with off-color abilities, but it's just something that you haven't seen before, and this is strength in Boros. This is consistency in card draw, while also maintaining solid combat. Number 9 is Beledros Witherbloom, the only newer commander on here. This is the only one from Strixhaven I want to talk about because I think Beledros has a cool design that's going to appeal to a lot of people. It also has a unique strategy because green and black hasn't really focused on life gain before, and with this kind of commander, all you're doing is creating those pest tokens. They die, you gain a life. You're gaining life so that you can then pay 10 life and untap all lands you control. Anytime you can untap your lands, it means you're in for a pretty big turn. I think it's fairly costed at 7 mana. It's only a 4/4, so it's not going to dominate your opponents right off the bat. But the idea of paying 10 life if you're in a life gain deck to untap your lands, you can only do it once each turn. I think that's fair, but that untap ability is just going to be so much fun to fool around with, and you get those pest tokens at the beginning of each upkeep, which is also a fun thing to take advantage of. Then number 8 we have Muldrotha the Gravetide, probably the oldest commander on here, but one that has aged incredibly well. Kind of like with Feather, you have a unique commander option that I think the reason why Muldrotha is fun, you don't have to play expensively. You don't have to play a competitive EDH deck. It doesn't really matter how competitive you want to play with Muldrotha, you can still have a very powerful deck. And what's good about a lot of these commanders is that they're super flexible. So if you want to play a pure graveyard deck, go for it. If you want to play a combo deck, go for it. If you want to take advantage of some pretty fun creatures like Spore Frog, go for it. You could play a land deck. You're pretty much guaranteed to synergize with everything if you're playing Muldrotha. So all around, just a flexible commander. Makes it very easy if you're newer to the game to figure out what you want to do, because at the bare minimum, hey, you get to play your creatures. Don't have to combo with things like Lion's Eye Diamond or anything like that. Then number 7 we have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. And this is a newer commander option from Commander Legends, and initially it doesn't seem super powerful. You get a clone, but you also pretty much ignore the legend rule. So the legend rule means that if you have 2 permanents that are both legendary and they share the same name, you have to sacrifice one of them. This pretty much gets around that, so any other partner commander that you pair up with Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, you can pretty much get another copy of it and leave it on the board. This makes Sakashima one of the more creative commander options in the last year. So you could partner this up with something like Vile Smasher the Fierce to really take advantage of that trigger, so that you're not just dealing that damage to one opponent, you could be dealing even more damage to another opponent. I think fooling around with the legend rule has always been one of the more fun things that you can do in Commander. We have a lot of other things that do this, like Helm of the Host, and I think Helm of the Host, ignoring that legendary rule or finding a way to get around it, makes it so that you can manipulate your commander in a way that is just so uncommon. And then number 6 we have Tergrid, God of Fright. I never said these had to be fair. I never said these had to be fun for your opponents. But I think playing something like this, whenever you can take advantage of whatever your opponents are playing, Tergrid just makes it a lot more fun for you. So playing with your opponent's cards, it makes every game different. Just about. It means that you don't exactly know what your opponents are going to play, you just know that you want their cards. And Tergrid's Lantern does offer you a slightly different alternative. Although you're pretty much going to want to stick with Tergrid, you do have some flexibility there. But this is another big reason why some cards like Opposition Agent are not only powerful but also pretty fun. It's going to hurt your opponents, they're not going to like it, but it's going to make your game experience just a little bit different each time. And then number 5, we have Yurlok of Scorch Thrash. Yurlok here offers you something unique, bringing back the old mana burn rule, where you lose life for each unspent mana. This in addition to allowing each player to add black, red, and green. And you'll find what I find fun in Commander is a little bit different than what other people find fun. I think the Commanders with the most risk tend to be the most enjoyable, because it means that there is player skill involved. So knowing when to do something is very important, and with a commander like this, that could be really powerful if you take advantage of it at the right time. So if you have a way to combo with Yurlok, if you have a way to tap it for several mana by untapping him and then tapping him again, you can have each player gain mana that they're probably not going to be able to use, and then those players will lose that much life. So you could play something like Umbral Mantle and Sword of the Perrunes to make that easier on yourself, but you just want to tap and untap for a ton of mana. And then number 4, we have Obeka Brute Chronologist. Another unique mechanic on a commander. I swear, Commander Legends just offered you so much unique stuff that you can build brand new decks around. Now this is an ability we have seen before, but not on a commander option. Sundial of the Infinite is where this ability comes from, and it's really meant to take advantage of abilities or creature tokens that would expire at the beginning of the next end step, because if you end the turn, you skip the beginning of the next end step, which is a really cool thing that you're going to benefit from the most. We have things like Sneak Attack, we have things like Glorious End. You don't want the downside of Glorious End, so it's always nice if you're able to really take advantage of that. You can keep the creature tokens that you create, you can keep the 3 cards that you draw off of something like Ideas Unbound, so it pretty much just helps you get around the negative, the downside to a lot of the cards in the format. And then number 3, we have Kenrith, the Returned King. Love talking about Kenrith. I think Kenrith is a jack of all trades, and you see that with all abilities here. Kenrith is another commander option like Muldrotha that's going to age really well, because you have so many things that you can synergize with, and this is what I find to be the most fun in Commander, is when you have flexible commander options that also give you a ton to synergize. It's not just flexible for the sake of being flexible. You have specific abilities here that you can choose to take advantage of. And like with Muldrotha, it doesn't matter how competitive you want to play, you're still going to have a good commander here. But if you choose to play more competitively, you have one of the best ones. You have all these abilities, pretty much a massive mana sink, so you have all those different ways of winning. Then number 2, we have Orvar the Allform. And here we have yet another unique commander option that is all about targeting your permanents. So it can be any kind of permanent in this blue deck. You're gonna get token copies of those permanents, which makes it already one of the more creative blue commanders. Blue tends to be rather boring, because I think everybody knows it's going to be super competitive, but you get a cool token strategy in blue, so it's not just about pure control, it's not just about drawing a bunch of cards, it's about focusing on the different permanents that you can get more copies of. You of course have powerful combos like you do in a lot of blue decks, so you can really take advantage of those if you want to. But you don't have to. You can still just make copies of good creatures with good ETBs like Agent of Treachery or Master of Waves, and you can still have a very entertaining game. And of course, since it is permanent, you can also get copies of other permanents like Sapphire Medallion and Rhystic Study. So you get great advantage cards here, making it easier for you to play the game. And this isn't something that we've had before in blue. So before I go on to number 1, I want to talk about some honorable mentions. I like Korvald. I think Korvald can be a fun commander, but he didn't really do much for me compared to Prosh Skyraider of Care. Yarok the Desecrated is another very interesting commander. You can have a ton of fun playing with ETBs of different permanents. Yarok is just not as casual friendly. It's not as easy to make a casual deck that's on par with other casual decks. Very easy to break this kind of commander. Alila Artful Provocateur is another very cool commander option, just not really introducing much new. You do get a cool enchantment / artifact strategy if you want it. You also have a cool flying sub-theme that you can take advantage of. Sisay Weatherlight Captain's another fun commander option. If you just want to fool around with legendary permanents, she's your commander. And Chulainn Teller of Tales is kind of in a similar situation to Yarok, combined with the fact that we're not really getting anything brand new here. You're just getting a card draw engine, and that's not necessarily fun for me. But I can understand if it's fun for other people. And Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth, is another pretty fun commander, but a little bit more on the competitive side. So number 1, we have Aromi of the Dead Tide. Aromi introduces a brand new keyword, and this is one of the few newly introduced keywords that I think is just fun in Commander. This is Encore, so you can exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature card in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn, and the Encore cost is equal to its mana cost, so that means you exile the creature card and pay its mana cost. For each opponent, you create a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. They gain haste, you sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, and you can only do that at sorcery speed, but it pretty much brings back Myriad, which I thought was an incredibly fun mechanic going back to Commander 2015, which we didn't really see afterwards. So similarly, you're going to take advantage of good creature ETBs, you're going to take advantage of good creatures in combat. And just in case if you're not aware why this commander is one of the more popular ones, it's because it can win games easily off of things like Grey Merchant of Asphodel and Massacre Worm. I mean, if you get 3 token copies of either of these, it's very likely that you're just going to win the game right there. It's very difficult for people to come back from that, especially if you're just going to keep filling your graveyard with similar creatures. But ETBs are a very popular thing to fool around with, and Aromi offers you something that I think was lacking in Commander, a strong and competitive Dimir-colored Commander option. Not to say that Dimir was the weakest, it just didn't have enough. I think Aromi offers you a unique keyword that really stands out in the Commander format. And this was an uncommon from the set too, so you have one of the best Commander options at the uncommon level from Commander Legends. So anyway, if you liked the video, why not subscribe, like, comment, share, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Void here signing off, have a good one.